Steve Kornacki, the khaki. Democrats are now 1 seat away from Senate control. I'm going to run this, and I'm going to go pee real quick. I'll be back.
Meaningful last couple of hours here, as you say. In Arizona, we got the call in the Senate race. It goes to Mark Kelly, the Democrat, the incumbent, defeating Blake Masters. The key to all of this was Maricopa County. It always is in Arizona. And if you've been following this drama all week, we were talking about there's a very particular type of ballot in Maricopa County we were all waiting on. And it was the ballots that were hand-delivered by voters to polling places on Election Day. There's a whole bunch of them in Maricopa County. There's almost 300,000 of them. Republicans had been pinning their hopes on that type of ballot. They were saying it's a very Republican-leaning voter who tends to do that, who takes their ballot in person to the poll places on Election Day. That had happened in 2020. They said it was going to happen again in 2022, and it was how Blake Masters was going to vault past Mark Kelly. Well, we got a big batch of about 75,000 votes, many of them that exact type of ballot I'm describing. And not only did Blake Masters not do as well as expected, Mark Kelly actually carried them. Mark Kelly actually won more votes, significantly more votes from that batch than Blake Masters did. And so with that, you just do not see a path for Blake Masters to catch up in the Senate race. And so Mark Kelly holds on to the Senate race. As significantly, potentially, in Arizona, what I just described, that dynamic I just described, changes the outlook, perhaps, in the governor's race, because here you have Democrat Katie Hobbs leading Republican Kari Lake. We have seen all week that Katie Hobbs has been leading by a smaller margin, about 80,000 fewer votes than Mark Kelly. And we had been looking at this race and saying, well, that giant batch of votes in Maricopa County, if it is a Republican batch of votes, it may not be enough for Blake Masters to overtake Mark Kelly, but it certainly could be enough for Kari Lake to overtake Katie Hobbs. With the numbers we saw from that batch of vote tonight, we saw Hobbs get more votes out of it than Kari Lake. So it raises the...
What happened last night in Arizona was the exact opposite of what Kari Lake needed to even come near Katie Hobbs. What happened last night in the big batch of votes showed Katie Hobbs' lead extending. Shouts out to the fucking the mules in Arizona for doing election fraud. You guys really did it. The voter fraud. We did it, boys. 2,000 mules, baby.
Possibility that this giant batch of votes in Maricopa, the ones that were dropped off at polling places on Election Day, may not even be enough to lift Kari Lake past Katie Hobbs. This race is far from being called, but I think there was a lot of thought that this lead from Katie Hobbs may not hold. It still may not, but the possibility that it does is now very real as a result of what we saw come out of Maricopa County tonight. And in addition to that, the Secretary of State's race in Arizona was also called Mark Finchem, the Republican candidate who had closely aligned himself with Donald Trump.
I mean, Mark Finchem was getting fucking wiped anyway. He was like... Mark Finchem is literally the worst guy for the Secretary of State job. He literally directly ran on, if I get elected, Republicans are never losing again. If I get elected, we are doing voter fraud, okay? We are doing election fraud. We're making it illegal to vote Democrat in the state of Arizona if I get elected. And, of course, motherfuckers in Arizona were like, all right, that's insane. You're going crazy. You're going crazy with it. You're going bananas mode, Mark. Calm the fuck down. And, of course that was going to happen.
With Donald Trump's claims about the 2020.
Dude, here's what happened, dude. They got so confident. They got so confident about their fucking victories. And they got so confident about, how much they've been able to exercise their desires no matter what little percentage of a base of support they have. And the greatest indication of this is or the greatest example of what I'm saying is abortion, right? Doesn't matter if it's 20% of the voter base across the board that is I am in support of banning abortions. We're going to use the mechanisms beyond the legislative state. We're going to use mechanisms beyond democracy to give you exactly what you want for that 20%. They got so high on their own supply that they started believing, I think, that people will legitimately respond positively when they say, oh, we're going to do crimes on behalf of the Republican Party. We're just going to fucking avoid reality. And they assumed that everyone else would come along with it because it doesn't even fucking matter. Now, the reality is, in America, yes, elections are pretty distorted. Redistricting gerrymandering has made it so that state legislatures in places like Wisconsin still give you, the entirety of the state legislature pretty much, even if the state itself votes overwhelmingly for Democrats. Like, if you get the majority of votes, you should be possibly getting the majority of the state legislature. That's not how this happens in a state like Wisconsin, for example, where Democrats weren't even able to get 30% of the state legislature, despite the fact that they had 51% of the votes. Okay? Here it is. Here is the reality of Wisconsin. Democrats won statewide with 51% of the vote and earned 30% of the state house. But that's it. Not every state looks like that, and you don't have enough. You haven't cheated hard enough to be able to achieve those results. Maybe one day, but there are always going to be places like the fucking state level seats, like the Secretary of State or Senate seats, where redistricting is not going to help you in this regard. So you can't be running your fucking mouth off saying that like your goal as the Secretary of State is to ensure that no Democrat ever wins again.
Election, we are now projecting will lose. He'll be defeated by Adrian Fontes, who wins that race for Secretary of State in Arizona. Now we go up to Nevada. With Arizona, Democrats.
That wasn't the secretary. That was the governor. Wait, what are you talking about? No, Mark Fincham is the fucking statewide Secretary of State seat. What are you talking about? It literally says it on the board, chatter. Read, okay? Read.
To Nevada. With Arizona, Democrats move within one Senate seat of holding on to control of the Senate. Could it be Nevada that puts them over the top? Well, within the last hour, we got
821 vote difference between Laxalt and Catherine Cortez Masto. Holy fucking shit, dude. Nevada. Nevada!
About 10,000 votes from Washoe County. We had been told by officials that they had 20,000 more pending. We were expecting 20,000 or so in the release. There were 10,000 in this release. Catherine Cortez Masto won more of them than Adam Laxalt. It wasn't a huge margin that she racked up, but it was enough to cut Laxalt's lead, which had been about 2,000, to cut it down to 821 votes statewide. We are told there will be no more votes coming out of Washoe County tonight. So really, I don't think there's anything else that's going to be happening in Nevada tonight. We do believe that there still are something on the order of 10,000 ballots left to come out of Washoe County. Some of them may be provisional. Some of them may be these ballots that need to be cured. That is, the voters had a signature issue. It needs to be corrected. It can take a few days. So it may be a while before you see all those 10,000 from Washoe, meaning that the next major development in this Nevada Senate race and in the race for control of the U.S. Senate, all eyes are now on Clark County, home of Las Vegas, home to 70% of the vote in the state of Nevada. And we know that tomorrow, 25,000 mail ballots are expected to be released.
All right, our guy in Nevada is Ralston, right? Joe Gloria says all the remaining ballots besides cures and provisionals will be reported out today. This came in this morning at 11:30, okay? Which means there will be 22,000 ballots in Clark that will be counted, which is a gigantic percentage, okay? A gigantic percentage of the fucking vote, of remaining votes. And also, Clark County, for those of you who don't know, is obviously a blue county. So this is tonight will probably be projection night for Nevada. Why is Nevada always the last to count the votes? Man, they barely learned math yesterday, okay? That's it. It's just, it's Nevada. It's desert people, dude. It melts their fucking brain. Arizona, California, Nevada. The further out west you go, the less they learn math. They learn how, you know what they teach in schools out here? How to be gay. That's it. CRT, how to be gay. And if you want to learn math, they say, no, go piss in the kitty litter box. You are now a cat.
From Clark County. We got a big batch of these earlier tonight. Cortez Masto won them by an almost 2-to-1 margin. It's what brought her. It's what really helped bring her so close to catching Laxalt. And so you're seeing 25,000 more of them due to come out tomorrow, which raises the possibility that if Cortez Masto is winning those ballots, anything on the order of what she won them by tonight, not only will she pass Laxalt, she will pass Laxalt and take a significant lead in this race. Now, you do see the red counties between Reno and Las Vegas. They are generally Republican, generally rural, low population. There are some votes still to come out of this area, but those votes, while we expect they would favor Laxalt, the number of them pale.
I mean, yeah, colorfully offbeat is correct. Counting is literally illegal in casinos. Checkmate, libtards, you know? Nevada hates counting so much they made it illegal, dog. If you count cards, they literally will not let you into a casino. That's true. Incorrect. You are allowed to count. Oh, shut up. You are, oh my God, dick riding casinos, dude. Imagine. Yeah, it's not illegal. You won't go to jail for it, but you'll be blacklisted from every fucking casino. And by the way, in the state of Nevada, there is nothing else to do. Okay? So being blacklisted from casinos, if you live in Nevada, basically means you're blacklisted from the fucking state. What are you going to do? Go eat peyote in the desert? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to fucking suck on a cactus? The fuck are you going to do? Nothing.
In comparison to what is still to come from Clark and potentially from Washoe as well.
There's more to do in Nevada than you think, LA man. Dude, stop. I have friends who live in Nevada, okay? I know what it's like, okay? You stay inside of that state for more than 3 days, it changes you. Stop. Don't act like there's more. It's just shooting guns, okay? It's shooting guns and doing drugs. That's it.
So, really, control of the Senate tomorrow could, I stress could be determined tomorrow in Clark County, because if Cortez Masto, if he can do well enough with these 25,000 votes that we're expecting to see out of there, it could put her into the lead. It could put her significantly into the lead. And if Cortez Masto ends up winning Nevada, on top of what we just saw in Arizona tonight, Democrats would win both of those seats, would have 50 Senate seats. With that, they would be guaranteed to continue their control of the chamber with Kamala Harris's tiebreaker vote. And then that Georgia runoff, which will still take place on December 6th, would only be to decide whether Democrats have 50 or 51 seats. But control, then, in that scenario, would not be an issue.
Jerma, if he exists, is proof that Nevada messes with your mental faculties? Yes, 100%. No, Jerma does exist. And the reason why he's a psycho killer is because he lives in Nevada. Okay? He haunts the entire state.
CNN now projects that Democratic Senator Mark Kelly wins re-election in Arizona, pulling off a critical victory for his party. The former astronaut defeating the Trump-endorsed Republican Blake Masters in one of the most closely watched Senate races in the nation. Again, CNN.
Yeah, I mean, this was a fucking lock, okay? This was an absolute lock. Now, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip Wolf Blitzer's analysis on what happened, because we already talked so much about it, okay? We already talked so much about fucking Blake Masters already, but I want to hear from Blake Masters personally, because apparently Tucker Carlson thought that he would be a fun and cool person to have on, even though he's a pathetic fucking loser. Now, if you don't want to be a pathetic loser at the top of the hour, okay, and watch an ad, actually, that's too harsh. It doesn't matter. That's too harsh of a segue. I'm sorry. You know what? there are methods that you can use to avoid the top of the hour ad break. Okay, it's coming right now, 11 minutes in. I felt really bad about that segue. I'm sorry. Some of those methods I can't tell you. Okay, I can't tell you what those methods are, but you should know. At this point, you should know. Wink, wink. Okay. But also you can, you can subscribe for $5 or for free with the Twitch Prime. Sometimes I get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have a juicy segue coming up and I totally fucking forget. Formerly Toxic, thank you for the 5. Spider from Mars, thank you for the 5. So hey Bozo, thank you for the 5. And the Gravy, thank you for the 5. Allowing like 20 people to fucking no longer see the ads. You can avoid the ads if you get gifted a sub. Here's the woman ad break now.
Blake Masters is running in the other big race in the state of Arizona, which, like the governor's race, is still nowhere near being settled. Masters says
Cap.
He can still win his race. He says there is evidence of true screw-ups in ballot counting. Counted ballots, uncounted ballots, somehow getting commingled into the same pile. So we asked Arizona officials for a response to these claims. We've heard nothing back from them. Blake Masters joins us now. Blake Masters, thank you so much for coming on. So tell us what you believe happened in some cases to ballots in Maricopa County, Arizona.
Well, first of all, Tucker, we're in a dogfight here in Arizona. My race will be very, very close. It's going to be decided by a few thousand votes either way. So there's hundreds of thousands of ballots outstanding, and they haven't been counted yet, which apparently is hard for Maricopa County. I mean, things are just so incompetent here. The problems started Tuesday morning when 20 to 30% of the voting tabulation machines didn't work. This wasn't a surprise when Election Day was. It just didn't work. I mean, what the heck is that, right? Incompetence at the very worst. But then it got worse. So people, when they got to a machine and the machine didn't work, they were invited to just drop their ballot in a secure box. Hey, we'll count this later. Well, it turns out Maricopa County, on at least 2 occasions, mixed up those uncounted ballots with ballots that had already been counted. So it's a giant disaster. It's a giant mess to try to unmix these ballots, right? I think the most honest thing at this point would be for Maricopa County to wipe the slate clean and just take all the ballots and do a fresh count. We'll see if they do that.
Yeah, wipe the slate clean and just do another election. That would be the most honest thing to do, right, Blake? That's what you want. Blake lost so fucking hard. He's like, the most honest thing that Maricopa could do is basically just do another election. You know what I'm saying? Come on. Let's do another one. Come on. Fuck it. We ball, you know? Come on. Just throw it out. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw the results. Come on.
That, but it's just incompetent.
How could they not do that? I mean, how could it?
This is one of those instances where, like, if my man came back, okay, if my man fucking came back and did, like, another recount, if he came back and did, like, another fucking recount, he would lose by, like, even more votes. You know what I mean? It's one of those instances, like, he's such a fucking, he is so bad. He's just bad.
It be considered a legitimate election outcome, whether you win or lose. But just if you care about democracy, you would demand that every vote is counted and not double counted, correct?
That's exactly right. I think Arizonans deserve much, much better. And when
no, man, nope. This is literally leaning into strategies that did not work. It does seem like, for all intents and purposes, Republicans are going on the exact opposite side, where they're just basically leaning in. Okay, like they saw the abortion shit pummel them, and they're still doing it in places like Kentucky, where the people of Kentucky unironically voted to protect abortions, right? To protect the right to be able to get an abortion. And the attorney general immediately came out and said, yeah, no, actually, democracy, not like that. We're not doing it that way. And now they're doing the whole, like, election denial stuff. That actually didn't work too well. A lot of the people that were pushing that narrative were just, like, weird and gross. And that wasn't captivating for a lot of people. Well, guess what? We're going to continue leaning into it. We're going to double down on it. And I am a little fearful still, because I do think that the likes of Tucker Carlson and others, especially because they are more effective propagandists, especially because they're doing propaganda and campaigning pretty much year round, that, like, they could potentially take They could potentially brainwash more of the Normans in the suburbs. I hope not, though.
Kerry Lake is governor, they're going to get it. So Maricopa County elections, maybe they're working hard, God bless them. It's at best just incompetent. But you know what else is incompetent, Tucker? The establishment, right? The people who control the purse strings. Senate Leadership Fund, Mitch McConnell. McConnell decided to spend millions of dollars attacking a fellow Republican in Alaska instead of helping me defeat Senator Mark Kelly. Had he chosen to...
Yeah, bro, what does that say about you? Mitch knows how to pick winners, dog. He knew you were a fucking loser. It's like, dog, you can't. I'm sorry, man. You can't be out here talking shit about Mitch when you got your back blown out, dude. You got your fucking back blown out by a bald, moderate, libbed up Democrat in the state of Arizona by the widest of margins. He literally performed the worst in comparison to projections, expectations, in comparison to the National Party's performance. Blake Masters is like the single person that performed literally the worst. You're done. You're done. You got fucking owned. You can't be out here being like, oh man, Mitch McConnell, like he really needs to resign or something. Yeah, in the words of esteemed Felix Biederman, bro, he thinks he's on the team. You're not on the team, dog. You're not on the board. You're not even on the bench. Just because you put the fucking jersey on doesn't mean you're on the team.
To spend money in Arizona, this race would be over. We'd be celebrating a Senate majority right now. And so my message to the people of America, my message to actually the Republican senators, hopefully my future colleagues, let's not vote Mitch McConnell into leadership. He doesn't deserve to be majority leader or minority leader. You get a choice.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, totally, dude. You got this. Yeah, no. Hey, guys, listen to me instead. You know, don't listen. Hey, guys. Hey, my fellow colleagues, come on. Come on, right? Let's do it, right? Come on, let's yay. Here, this is the meme I'm referencing. Dude, who invited my man Blood? Bro thinks he's on the team, dude. What's up, bro? You think putting the fucking jersey on implies that you have a say in the conversation? Get the fuck out of here.
Choice. You can stand with your constituents and stand with Americans, or you can stand for Mitch McConnell. Tucker, if I'm lucky enough to represent Arizona in the U.S. Senate next year.
Mitch McConnell doesn't even step foot inside of his own goddamn backwater ass fucking state and blows everyone's backs out year over year, okay? Mitch McConnell literally is like, if you're poor, I will melt you into cannon fodder. If you're poor, you are biomatter. I despise you. I want to make sure my wife makes more money as the transportation secretary. And then Kentucky's like, that's right, sir. We will vote for you by 80% margins, sir. You got my vote. Like, the fuck do you mean? The fuck do you mean, dude? That's crazy. Where are you coming from? Win a seat.
I think it's clear where I'll stand.
Let me just ask you really quick, why wouldn't, I mean, he spent money on primaries in Alaska. This is one of the big Senate races in the country, and he avoided it. Why wouldn't he support you, I wonder?
I will leave it to the viewer to decide whether it is just malice or whether it's gross incompetence. But clearly Mitch McConnell cares about Mitch McConnell and less about a Senate majority or the people of America. I think we need a change. That's why I ran for office. And one way or another, change is coming.
Yeah, no, totally, dude. Yeah, it is coming. You know, the Republican Party implosion. Change is coming to America, but not in the way that he understands it.
Blake Masters, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, God, I love infighting, dude. It's so sick. It's so fucking sick. It's so fire. The more these polls come out, the more frantic and desperate Trump is going to get with his attacks. Lamau, this should be fun. GOP presidential polling showing DeSantis at 42%, up 6 points, and Trump at 35%, down 10 points. Oh, my Lord. Holy fucking shit, dude. That's great. It's great to see. Oh, by the way, during the summer, Stephen Law, the head of a McConnell-aligned super PAC, told the financier Peter Thiel, who had spent millions supporting Mr. Masters, that Mr. Masters had scored the worst focus groups results of any candidate he had ever seen. This was the reason why Mitch McConnell very openly stated he did not want Blake Masters. He didn't even want fucking J.D. Vance, really. But Ohio is a safe haven now in a way that Arizona is not. Okay? Hillbilly Elegy touched my heart. Exactly, Seal Puncher. There you go. That's how you know he sucks. Did you see the scene edited out of the Blake Masters commercial?
Actually shooting with the silent protection.
Stop! Bro! Oh, he's crazy. Joe Gloria says all the remaining ballots besides cures and provisionals will be reported out today. But anyway, yeah, Ohio is a freak nation, okay? Ohio, with the exception of like certain areas where like they didn't go for Majewski because they don't know any better, okay? Disgusting. Really disappointing that Majewski had his election stolen from him. That was my guy in Congress. That was my guy. Okay. Ohio is the weird state. Okay. You got Florida and you got Ohio. They like to keep it weird. They're going to keep it weird and they're going to keep getting weirder and weirder. Okay. Year after year. Did you cover the Tim Pool Milo thing already? No. Well, I mean, speaking of Ohio, here it is. A 26-year-old Ohio man shot his neighbor to death as he mowed his lawn for being a Democrat. He has come over like 4 times confronting my husband because he thought he was a Democrat. Why? Why? I don't understand. The victim's wife to 911. Man charged with murder and shooting death of neighbor outside of Butler County. Man killed in Okeana shooting identified and bond set for suspect. There you go. If you want to understand, I mean, this is a brutal fucking story. Joel Syverud, thank you for the 5 of the subs. But like, this is what's going on out there in Ohio, okay? Austin Gene Combs, 26, was booked in the Butler County, and a bond was set for $950,000 for killing his 43-year-old neighbor, Anthony Lee King, who died of multiple gunshot wounds, and his death was ruled a homicide. Family members called 911 after hearing shots and finding King unresponsive and bleeding in the backyard. The family told the dispatcher a neighbor had confronted him before about some perceived political affiliation. His father's in the backyard and he's not breathing, the son says. The suspect just walked back onto his property, he tells the dispatcher. The victim's wife then tells the dispatcher they were cutting grass and working on the yard when she claims when she came inside to let the dog out. That's when she heard the gunshots. I looked in my backyard and that man is walking away from my husband and my husband's on the ground. He has come over like 4 times confronting my husband because he thought he was a Democrat. Combs was taken into custody in a Jeep. Why did they mention that? What's up with Jeeps in Ohio? I know it's not related to the fucking story, which is a brutal story, but why? Is there something about Jeep in Ohio? Are Jeeps made in Ohio or something? Oh, they're made in Toledo? Is that why? Anyway, so yeah, that happened in Ohio. All right. I'm sure this will... I'm sure, inevitably we'll be able to deal with this kind of rhetoric, this kind of behavior. I've had this tweet up for the longest time, only because, am I crazy or does he kind of look like Ethan Klein a little bit here? Like if Ethan had black hair instead of white hair, doesn't he kind of look like Ethan a little bit? He looks like Dream. It's like if Ethan and Dream collabed. Bro, my man has too much table salt, okay? That is, what the fuck? What's happening there? What are you fucking hitting the table salt to make sure that ghosts aren't attacking you or some shit? What the fuck is that? Protecting himself from slugs. Just flavor, dude. Dude, free taste, dude. That's what Felix says. All right. Okay. Before we get to Mayor Karen Bass, table salt, Adderall, and allergy medicine. Yeah. Let's take a look. Why we lost and how we win.
Election is. Who is it a referendum on? The assumption of Republicans was it's got to be a referendum on the party in power. It has to be. The party in power is doing a terrible job, and it's unified. They have.
Well, that is what a midterm election is. It is a referendum in the party on power, unless the party that is not in power is really, really fucking bad, which is what happened in this circumstance.
The House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency. All the bad stuff is their fault. In many of these races, the referendum turned into a referendum not on Joe Biden and the Democrats, but into a referendum on the particular weird, out-of-the-box candidates that Republicans chose in many of these areas.
What is this fucking music, dude? What is happening in the background of this video?
Candidates who made many independents feel insecure. And this was a major problem. It was a serious problem for the Republicans. Well, folks, we got to recap that midterm 2022 election. What happened? What went wrong? How do Republicans fix it? And what kind of opportunities lie ahead for them?
I just got to point out one thing here. No matter what the fuck Ben Shapiro says, a reminder that, like, he is just as responsible for the narrative that was set by the National Republican Party that hyper-focused on, like, kitty litter and, like, trans children or whatever the fuck, significantly more than anything else, okay? So if he turns around and acts like that's, exclusive to Trump, or if he turns around and acts like that is, like, a Republican Party thing that they need to fix, like, remember that it's your fault, brother. You're the one who did it. You are a culture warrior, okay? Don't act like you are the one, you were, focusing on the issues, which, by the way, that's a whole different subject that I've been covering for the past week, but we can talk about if you were to hit the issues, how that would look like for the National Republican Party. Probably not great.
Them if they do. This video is sponsored by Ring. What went wrong is the big question, because here's the thing. It was supposed to be a red wave, or at least a red tide, and instead it turned into a red trickle, by which I mean it looks like the Republicans are going to end up with bare control of the House, a very, very small majority as opposed to what should have been a sweeping majority. They may end up in control of the Senate. That is going to depend, it looks like, on a Georgia runoff, which doesn't look particularly amazing because it's Herschel Walker against Raphael Warnock, and Walker doesn't happen to be a particularly strong candidate. So what went wrong? What exactly happened here? Well, the answer is actually fairly obvious. The Republicans ran a lot of crappy candidates. Where Republicans ran strong candidates who are not associated with out-of-the-box crazy ideas, they won, and they won big. The big contrast in 2022 is between Florida, where Republicans absolutely cleaned up, and, say, the Georgia gubernatorial race.
Like, how many times did Ben Shapiro talk about voter fraud? Not in this cycle, and not, like, hyper-specific to Donald Trump, but as a rule of thumb, any Republican that says, oh, my God, this election stolen theories that were, like, individualized by Donald Trump was just such a bad narrative, right? Whenever they say that, remind them, or at least, like, look through voter fraud, key search voter fraud on their fucking media outlets, or key search voter fraud on their own fucking Twitter threads, and you will see, for, like, the past 30 fucking years, the National Republican Party has been screaming about voter fraud. The only thing that Donald Trump did was make that a personal deal. Okay, he personalized it. And as a popular candidate, he was always able to take things that Republicans were using as a way to, cut propaganda and make it like his own issue. You know what I mean? Oh, the disdain that the elites have for you, the liberal elites have for you, that's the same disdain that like Graydon Carter had for me because he's a sissy and his parties fucking stink. No one wants to go to the Vanity Fair parties anymore because I'm not involved. I'm not allowed. And like, no one in the fucking red state living in the Appalachian Mountains is like, oh yeah, Graydon Carter, he is a sissy. No, it was just the fact that they were like, that's our guy, and liberals hate me, and they hate him because he is just like me for real. But overall, it was still a larger argument. Okay? Overall, it's still the same fucking argument that the Republican Party's been making, right? Same with fucking voter fraud. It came across like an individual loser crying foul over and over again when Donald Trump personalized it. However, the reality is that the argument, and I've said this for years now, okay? Trump is not the problem. The Republican Party is the problem. And when liberals try to say it's just Trump, they are missing everything. When Republicans try to identify the problem as just Trump, they are literally cooking themselves, okay? Trump is just a victim of his own success. The Republican Party in general is now a victim of their own success. That's it.
Where Brian Kemp did really well against Stacey Abrams. Or Texas, where Greg Abbott did really well against Beto O'Rourke. Democrats poured tons of money into these places. The contrast is those places versus all the other places where the Republicans wildly underperformed. And here I'm talking about Pennsylvania, where they ran Doug Mastriano, who got absolutely smoked by Josh Shapiro in the gubernatorial race. Or New Hampshire, where Don Baldock got smoked by Maggie Hassan. These are the races where things should have gone differently because all the fundamental
Bro, his criticisms are identical to the fucking liberals on CNN, by the way. It's pretty funny.
underlying factors were in favor of Republicans here. A 43% approval rating for the current president of the United States. 75% of Americans in exit polls saying that the economy was moving in the wrong direction. 28% approval rating for Joe Biden among independents. 40-year high in inflation. Chaos in the Middle East. Breaking out again thanks to Iran. Right, like tons.
Yeah, totally, dude. Hey, another lock that I had, by the way, I just want to point. I know I'm posting dubs right now. Remember when everyone was like, oh my God, Joe Biden and his Afghanistan pullout policy is going to be genuinely awful. And the media in unison, both the Republicans and the Democrats, both in liberal media, were pummeling him. How many voters do you think voted on the Afghanistan pullout policy, you think? How many voters were like, man, I really can't get myself to vote for Joe Brandon here or because of the Afghanistan withdrawal? Suck my dick, okay? Suck my fucking cock. That policy was popular. That was absolutely popular then. The media tried really fucking hard to make it seem like it wasn't. Everyone thought it was good. Everyone. The Republicans tried to do the 13 brave warriors that died narrative over and over again, and then they fucking threw those brave warriors that died aside like Woody in Toy Story. I'm no longer playing with you anymore. No one gives a shit. Okay? That was good. That was a dub for Brandon. The real awfulness is not the pullout policy. The real awfulness was quite literally starving the Afghan population. And that's ongoing. But because Americans don't give a fuck about brown people, especially Muslims, no one even cares about the Democratic Party's current foreign policy on Afghanistan, which is disastrous. It's murderous. It is an ongoing human rights abuse. But obviously that's not going to, lead to any sort of domestic punishment because no one gives a fuck. That's the unfortunate reality. So when Ben says like, oh man, Iran, blah, 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 like shut the fuck up. No one cares. No one cares about that. The American war machine keeps going brr. And the only people that do care are probably parents and people close to like veterans who were, active duty deployed out to the fucking middle of nowhere for no other reason other than to make sure that JSOC operations could get black budget funds from maintaining an opiate trade that goes directly from Afghanistan into Europe, okay? Nobody gave a fuck. Maybe the only people that will vote against Joe Brandon in that regard are the ladies back home that were getting fucked by Jody, who now can't have sex with their boyfriends anymore because their fucking shitty-ass husbands are back home, okay? That's it. That's not a broad enough constituency of voters. Sorry, okay? That's it.
Tons of stuff happening in the world right now, none of it particularly good for the Democrats, which is why, if you looked at the polls, all the movement in the last weeks was toward the Republicans. So what went wrong? The answer is Republicans assumed in a lot of these races that the fundamentals against Joe Biden were so strong they could literally go down to the homeless shelter, pick up some people, and put them up for races. That is not how politics works, and this is what the independents showed. So many of those same independents who didn't like Joe Biden voted for a Democratic candidate because they looked at the Republican candidate and they said, this is not somebody I can trust with governance. This is the constant story. The more solid the Republican candidate, the better the candidate did. I know this seems like tough stuff, but it really is not. Republicans made a bad habit of, in primaries, picking candidates who seemed attractive because they were fight people, but they didn't actually guarantee the possibility of solid governance, solid, sober stuff once they were in office. See, think of politics like a cake. Okay, and the cake has a couple of elements. It's got the cake, it's got the icing. Republicans are very attracted by the icing. We love the icing. The icing is the social culture war kind of stuff, the sexy stuff where you're fighting against the...
Yeah, sexy stuff, like fucking freaking out about like the permanent war narrative, freaking out about your neighbor being demonic, thinking that like teachers at school are teaching your children that like, you should be upset about being a white person and also transing your children actively. That sort of stuff. No, dude, no. That icing, and he is right, that is icing. That is the only part of the fucking narrative that is actually tangible for the Republican base, because the other part of the narrative is gross and awful and anti-poor, and most people nowadays understand that reality and don't, it's not actually a fucking, let's get out to the polls type beat. When you're running on cutting Social Security, you're going to look like Blake Masters, okay? It's just a fundamental problem within the Republican Party in general, and it's not about Donald Trump.
Wild equity agenda of the Democrats. You're fighting against the transing of the children, all that.
Yeah, see, he's saying it. He literally, dude, that is what fucking got you to lose, idiot.
All this stuff's super important. Icing is great. You can't have a great cake without the icing. But if the cake is icing, and what is underneath the icing is actually not cake, it's just a bag of flaming garbage, the icing isn't going to help. And so Republicans kept picking candidates where there was no evidence these people were going to be good at governing. They'd been at like QAnon rallies 6 months beforehand. That is not going to win. And here's the thing. If you actually wish to see conservatism win, you need people to win their races. They need to win their races. This is not all that shocking. That was the big problem here. People got really happy about the underlying bad conditions for Democrats, and they assumed they could put up a bag of crap, and that bag of crap would then be elected to high office. And that is typical.
Here's why Ben's wrong. He's saying you can't give people only icing. You have to give them cake. Like, you have to give them the foundations. He's wrong. That's not true. Because what are the foundations? You have to, what do you think, like, promoting deregulation and tax cuts for the wealthy is going to be a good way? Like, it's going to be a fucking leading message? Like, I guess to a certain degree, if you can lie, right, and the Democrats have no counter for it, but, like, people ultimately are not going to think, like, oh, we should cut Social Security. Like, I'm going to go and vote for a Republican because they're cutting Social Security, okay? Especially when the 65-plus voter base is leaning 45% more, by 45 percentage points more, towards the Republican Party. You can't fucking run on cutting grandma's spending. You can't run on killing grandma, okay? You can't do that. That's the literal cake. That is at the heart of the conversation. Republicans literally want to run on wedge issues specifically because the other shit that they want to push is gutting these Social Security and entitlements and benefits packages that are already in a state of disarray in this goddamn country further with no solution in sight.
Typically not how it works for Republicans. You have to demonstrate, at best, like Ron DeSantis, that you've got cake, you're really good at governance, and you can do the icing really well. You can fight the media. You can fight the social issues. You can fight woke corporatism. All those things you can fight. But the cake has to be there. Or like Brian Kemp, who fought a few of the cultural issues, but more was just the cake. There wasn't like tons and tons of icing. It was mostly just cake. Or Mike DeWine in Ohio, who earned the trust of his population in Ohio to the extent that he won over 60% of the vote in Ohio. J.D. Vance, by contrast, won about 53% of the vote because he was a more controversial candidate. Well, folks, with the holidays coming.
What the fuck? What do you mean J.D. Vance was more controversial? What? Why was J.D. Vance controversial?
The party in power for the election, it has to be. The party in power is doing a terrible job, and it's unified. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency. All the bad stuff is their fault. In many of these races, the referendum turned into a referendum not on Joe Biden and the Democrats, but into a referendum on the particular weird, out-of-the-box candidates that Republicans chose in many of these areas. Candidates who made many independents feel insecure. And this was a major problem. It was a serious problem for the Republicans. So, what does that mean for 2024 and looking forward? What it means is that if the Republicans look at the underlying trends, Republicans did well with black voters. They did well with Hispanic voters. They did better with suburban women. In the generic congressional ballot, Republicans will have won this election.
When Ben Shapiro says Republicans did well with black voters, he's literally talking about like 6%. Okay? Just, I want people to understand. When Ben Shapiro or Republicans, or even the New York Times does this sometimes, when they say like, wow, they're really doing well with the black vote here, they mean literally they mean like 5 to 6%. Okay? Which is crazy to consider. That is insane. That is considered a fucking legitimate W. It's not.
By somewhere between 2 and 4 points. That's not a bad election on the surface of it. It just didn't materialize in many of the key races, again, because of bad candidate choice. And many of those candidates were tied up in the Donald Trump desire to see people talk incessantly about the 2020 election and his claim that the election was stolen from him. This is why, in the immediate aftermath of the election, you had Donald Trump putting out on Truth Social messages about Don Baldock being insufficiently sycophantic to him. He picked Don Baldock. He picked Don Baldock in New Hampshire specifically because Don Baldock denied the results of the 2020 election. That's why Trump loved him. And then Don Baldock was asked, did Trump win the election? And he said no. And then he lost. And Trump said, well, it was because he refused to go along with me. No, President Trump, that is not what happened. Don Baldock was a bad candidate. You picked him in the primaries. That one's on you. Same thing happened with Mehmet Oz. Apparently, Donald Trump endorsed Mehmet Oz, who barely eked out a primary victory against.
How is he going to say Mehmet Oz is a bad candidate? Like, if you're saying Don Baldock is a bad candidate because he's an extremist, that's fine. That's true, especially for the state, right? But Mehmet Oz is not an extremist by any means. So why the fuck is he going to try to point that same finger of blame at Mehmet Oz then? Because Dr. Oz quite literally ran an infinitely better campaign than Herschel Walker, okay? He did. Or he didn't run a great campaign, but his approvals, his name recognition carried him. And the things that he was pushing for, the ideas that he was pushing for in the short period of time that he actually did, step foot inside of the fucking Pennsylvania borders, was literally to talk about like how he's going to run from the middle.
Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania on the basis that Melania liked Dr. Oz on TV. And that is not how you pick candidates. President Trump picked Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. He endorsed him. He wanted him. Why? Because Mastriano said that the election of 2020 was stolen. Regardless of what you believe about the election of 2020, if your main issue in 2022 is election 2020, you're going to lose. It's going to be a serious problem for you as a candidate. So moving forward toward 2024, Republicans are going to have a choice. Right now, they have the Florida model. The Florida model is Ron DeSantis took a state that he won by 30,000 votes in 2018, 0.4% of the vote, and he transformed that into a 20-point victory. He won that state by 1.5 million votes. That was his margin of victory. The rest of the state went red as well. Republicans picked up 4 House seats in Florida. Marco Rubio walked away with a 16 percentage point win over Val Demings. That was supposed to be a close race. What happened in Florida? Ron DeSantis is good at governing. He is good at organizing. He's a good candidate. Your choice. Do you want the candidate who grows majorities large?
I think like places like Florida, I can point to every single place where the Democratic Party underperformed. And if you point to any of those fucking places, you will almost always see an establishment Democrat who is running to the fucking right or desperately trying to run to the right-wing position. And if your goal is to normalize right-wing positions, then yeah, you're doing a great job. But if you normalize right-wing positions, the people on the ground are always going to vote for a right-winger. Okay? Florida is a great example of this. New York is a great example of this. Maxwell Frost won in Florida. How the fuck did Maxwell Frost, a fucking left-wing progressive Gen Z Zoomer, win in Florida while simultaneously Florida is deep fucking red? How did the head of the DCCC lose their fucking New York seat while AOC is crushing in her district? I thought AOC was unsafe. I thought AOC wasn't going back to her district enough. I thought she wasn't doing enough work. How does that happen? Stop running to the fucking right. You one of the most Democratic districts of Orlando? It doesn't matter. I thought that people would be terrified of someone who is even remotely aligned with socialist values. I thought when you put the socialist stink on someone, that they would absolutely, that would be a death sentence in fucking Florida across the board. How did that not happen to Maxwell Frost? The point is, and I know Maxwell Frost dropped BDS, and a lot of people are upset about that. A lot of people are angry for that reason. But like, what you have to realize is like, if people are running for something, no matter where the fuck they're running, and they are able to run a good campaign, if they're able to have good ground game, and they have the demographics, and most places they have the fucking demographics, they're going to win. If you run to the right for no fucking reason because you're fearful of the left, okay? If you're fearful of the left and this like leftist wave within the Democratic Party, and you run to the right and you galvanize the right-wing base and you actually legitimize their talking points, then all of a sudden, you know, an actual right-winger is going to win, because you will never be able to out-patriot the right. You will never be able to out-racist the right. You will never be able to out, like, crime control the right. I fear no one. Hassan, don't you get MR? What? The fuck? You will never be able to out right-wing the right. John Kerry tried it. He got fucking owned, okay? He tried to be like, I'm a real patriot against George W. Bush. He got fucking owned. The Swift boat saga, okay? George W. Bush destroyed him. You will never be able to out-hog the hogs. All you're doing when you try to out-hog the hogs is allow the hogs to gain ground on their rhetoric. Okay?
Large majorities out of opportunities, or do you want the candidate in 2024 who took an electoral college victory and a popular vote loss in 2016 and proceeded to turn that into an electoral vote loss and a popular vote loss in 2020, and then proceeded to give away 2 Georgia Senate seats in 2020, and then proceeded to give away many seats in the election of 2022. Listen, I thought that President Trump did many, many wonderful things as president. The question is, what do you think he's going to do as candidate Trump in 2024? How do you think he has impacted the Republican Party going forward? And what will he do to fix that? Is he capable of shifting and moving? Is he capable of commonsensical change? So far, he's not shown any evidence that he is. He's going to have to change that. He spent the days since the election ripping on Ron DeSantis, the most successful Republican governor of any of our lifetimes. Does that seem like a smart, intelligent, and well-calibrated move designed to draw independents in the future? Or does it seem narcissistic and divisive? Right? These are serious questions that must be asked moving forward, especially if you want to win the independents. The story of the last few election cycles is also how the independents voted. In 2016, undecided voters, day of the election, broke 2-1 for Trump. In 2020, undecided voters, day of the election, broke 2-1 for Biden. 2022, undecided voters broke halfway down the middle. They split. That shouldn't have happened. Republicans should have walked away with the undecideds. They didn't. That's a serious, serious problem. Moving forward.
Yeah. Make no mistake. This is true. And the reason why that's happening is because of Ben Shapiro. Like, if Donald Trump is responsible for that, which he is, so is Ben Shapiro. Like, It is wild that all of these fucking Republican media operatives are now acting like they haven't been running on their transing your daughter narrative non-fucking stop. And the reality is, like, they were running on this before Donald Trump ran for office, and they will continue running on it. He literally said that stuff is icing and it's good, showing zero self-reflection. Brother, that's at a certain point, that is what is, keeping people away. Because you're going fucking crazy on the timeline. You're going nuts with it. While simultaneously pointing at Donald Trump as the singular reason why you're losing, which is great. I mean, this shows that these guys cannot turn around. They cannot change. Their inability to change is obvious. And I like that. Because in some ways, it's impossible for them to change. They can't. Because what are they going to do? They're not going to run on cutting Social Security. They'll get fucking owned. Because that's all they have. That's what they used to run on. But, they can't do that anymore to win and remain and be competitive in the national stage. So they have to run on wedge issues. And now they're in a weird predicament where they're shitting on the guy who ran successfully on wedge issues, but too successfully, by claiming that, people should have been running on policies.
Republicans will be presented with an opportunity because Democrats are not learning any lessons, because Democrats did better than they expected. Democrats believe they can do whatever they want. Joe Biden literally said this. He was asked, what are you going to change? He said nothing.
What in the next 2 years do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country, particularly as you contemplate a run for president in 2024?
Nothing, because they're just finding out what we're doing.
They're going to keep doubling down on the big spending, on the equity garbage, on the transing of the children. They're going to keep...
Yeah. Yeah, that's what the Democrats are running on. Transing your children and the equity garbage. Bro, like, if Democrats leaned into that a little bit and, like, showed how fucking ridiculous Republicans are and cut equity, or equality rather, as the American dream, they would be wiping on the fucking policy front. Okay? Like, these guys literally, they're bread and butter, they're vegetables on the side of fucking steak with the dessert. Their vegetable part of the fucking conversation is literally calling equity garbage, calling equality out as a bad thing, especially at a time when so many Americans are suffering, dude. You know what I mean? You can't do that. You're hitting the fucking, you're hitting the bell a little too hard on how shitty it is when, a government is doing the adequate things, the adequate measures.
Doubling down on the wild social radicalism. They're going to keep doubling down on the inflationary...
It's wild social radicalism to, expand child tax credits and eviscerate child poverty. You know what I mean? Like, genuine fucking dubs on the wonk side, on the policy side, that have truly had a tremendous impact, like a positive impact on people's lives, is actually a bad thing. Okay? Now, this is why I also always say, I don't fucking know if the Democrats will be able to fucking pull this off, because they're not very good at turning around and basically telling you, like, no, expanding child tax credits is a good thing. These people are fucking psychos. Look how little they have been talking about the student loan debt relief. They're not fucking screaming for the mountaintops, every mountaintop they can. Arkansas, Nebraska, Tejas, all of these fucking Republican safe havens have done their very best to have attorneys general go out and basically tell you, like, no, we're pieces of shit. We're literally going to fucking stop student loan debt relief from happening. Okay? Use that. Use that as an opportunity. Look at Look at Kentucky. Look at Kentucky. They just literally said, fuck your voting, fuck your ballot provision, fuck your amendment that you voted on to defend abortion. Our attorney general is going to do what he wants to do, which is continue to fucking ban abortion in the state. Okay? Use that as an opportunity. Hammer that shit in. Democrats can't. So right now we're in a weird holding pattern where it is like, where it's basically like, will the Republican Party implode before the Democratic Party offers them an out by being awful?
Policy and bad fiscal and economic policy that leads to stagnation. They're going to keep doing that sort of stuff. Republicans will get another bite at the apple. All they have to do is get sober and get serious and stop pretending that just because Democrats are bad, that means you can run whomever you want and that person will inevitably win. Wrong.
I want to say the same thing to the Democrats. Like, just because the Republican Party is imploding doesn't mean you can continue to fucking run to the right over and over again and offer these like weird lifelines to the Republican Party because you're more fearful of like a leftist majority in your House or in your fucking Senate or in your in your state legislatures. You can't. Stop running to the right. Stop running to the right. Stop running to the right. But who knows? We'll see what happens. I think Democrats overall think that like this was a gigantic dub for them and they're going to continue doing whatever the fuck they're doing. Even Patrick Maloney, Mr. L-Taker himself, immediately came out and attacked AOC. Shut the fuck up. That's no different than Blake Masters saying, it's really fucked up that Mitch McConnell didn't give me money.